Hello, everyone. Welcome this morning. It's good to see you all. My name is Michelle Massey, and I'm the Director of Public Programs for the Museum of Russian Art. This is our second virtual tour with our curator of this exhibition, our main exhibition, Leaders and the Masses, Mega Paintings from Soviet Ukraine. We are recording these sessions, and so if you'd like to view September's session or any of our other virtual programs, you can simply go to our website, TMORA.org, and look under programming. You'll find there's a tab for virtual programming archive. I'd also like to mention the galleries are open 7 days a week. We'd love to have you. You can see that Masha and I are situated in the gallery, so to speak, right now. Our beautiful gift shop is also open. And I'd also like to mention that we just launched our online gift shop as well. So you'll be able to do your holiday shopping either here with us if you stop in, or you can do it online as well. And I'll be sharing those links. We will be taking questions, or Masha will be toward the end of the program. So you're welcome to share your questions via the chat box. And if you're not as familiar with Zoom, you can go to the bottom of your screen and you'll find the chat box. That chat will go directly to Masha and I, so the entire audience won't see it, but we will review them and be able to hopefully get to as many questions as we can. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our wonderful curator. Masha Zavialova was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and received her doctorate from the University of Minnesota. As our chief curator and head of exhibitions and collections, she has curated more than 50 exhibitions here at our museum. She also works on independent curatorial projects and writes for art catalogs. She is an award-winning translator of African-American women writing into Russian. She's also a co-director of the folk performance group Nitka and a board member of the American Siberian Educational Foundation. Please welcome Dr. Masha Zavialova.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have so many of you with us today. And today I will continue talking about our current exhibition, Leaders and the Masses. We covered some paintings from the first section of the exhibition last time, a month ago, I believe. And today we will continue to talk about this wonderful exhibition. And let me start sharing my screen so that you can actually look at beautiful paintings in this show. And so now on your screen, you can see this portrait of the collector whose collection was donated by his wife, Rose Brady, to our museum, or the bulk of his collection, about 111 paintings. Some paintings went to other museums, university museums, such as Amherst and the University of Georgia. And most of the paintings came to our museum. And we are grateful for this collection. It's really quite a unique selection of paintings that Yuri Manichuk collected in the 1990s. And I just want to, I will be repeating a little bit of the information from the past tour, but not a lot. And I would like to talk about Yuri Manichuk's idea behind his collecting. And usually on the website and in other texts from Yuri and Rose, they mentioned that Yuri wanted to preserve the historical past of Ukraine from the Soviet period, which was his childhood and youth. But during one interview to the Russian television in New York, I believe, he said that he wanted to collect a set of paintings that would have been shown in an imagined Soviet era exhibition dedicated to some important date, like a party congress that they held every 4 or 5 years, or the 60 years after the revolution, or the 50 years of the establishment of the Soviet Union. These exhibitions were held often. They were called all-union exhibitions, and there were also Republican exhibitions. So there were between 20 and 23 all-union large exhibitions every year in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And usually these exhibitions had a certain structure behind them. And that's what Yuri wanted to preserve in his collection. Usually there would be a lot of large thematic paintings. They were called thematic paintings. Large paintings on the historical and revolutionary themes. That was probably the most important. The revolution, the Civil War, the collectivization, the representation of Soviet leaders. And in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, it would be Stalin and Lenin. After Stalin's death, there would be no Stalin ever in all Union or Republican exhibitions. There would be a lot of Lenin, Karl Marx, other Soviet leaders, and the current leaders for that time, such as Nikita Khrushchev and Leonid Brezhnev. And there would be the theme of the Second World War, that was a must. And then a very important theme that would be the peaceful work of the Soviet people, and also women in Soviet life, in Soviet industries and collective farming were a very important theme, and the youth. And also a certain number of still lifes and landscapes. So let's see look at some of the paintings that would be quite a typical example of what would be shown in these large all-Union and Republican exhibitions that would number hundreds of paintings, would be housed in some of the larger, more important exhibition halls in Moscow, in Leningrad, and in Kiev. So we are talking about Ukrainian artists here. And this painting is a great example of what would be approved by the jury of an all-Union or a Republican exhibition. So this painting shows Nikita Khrushchev, the leader. You can see him right here, presenting the second order of Lenin to Ukraine. And here you can see sometimes on when you look at the painting overall, you don't see these details. So I will be showing you some fragments, some details of the painting to have you pay attention to these important details. And also we will try to unpack, to read, learn to read these paintings through a lot of visual references and visual clues that Soviet artists would put into their paintings to help us understand the painting in the, I would say, politically correct way. Because these paintings, no matter how different they are all based on one ideological narrative. So there is a connection between all of these paintings, even though the individual interpretations of that one ideological narrative could be different. So we see here Khrushchev pinning the second order of Lenin to the banner, to the Ukrainian Republican banner. And you see how the artist went to a great length to paint these orders so that there is no mistake on what Nikita Khrushchev is doing. He's not just, feeling the beauty of the fabric of the banner. No, he's pinning these orders, and one of them is already there, and the second one is in his left hand. And if we look at the painting overall, we again see a crowd of people, the audience that is always representative. So the artist's point behind showing all of these people would be to show that this crowd shows the support of the Soviet people to the Soviet leader. And there are people here, faces from different walks of life. You can see here the collective farmers and workers and people that look like Soviet leaders, probably directors of factories, and honored workers that awarded different kinds of orders, and also participants, veterans of the Second World War. So the painting is, it's a 1960 painting, so just 15 years after the war. Behind Khrushchev, you can see the leaders of Ukraine. And here you can see the first secretary of the Communist Party of Ukraine, Nikolai Podgorny, chairman of the Council of Ministers, and the chairman of the Supreme Council of Ukraine. So all three leaders are here, but also this woman who could be a collective farmer who distinguished herself through her work on her collective farm and was awarded these many medals and orders here. And also the children dressed in white under the banner of that shows Lenin. So all important parts of a large Soviet official painting are here. But also look at these women up front. They're wearing Ukrainian dress because it's a painting shows an event in Ukraine. So there will be always people of that nationality, that is the title nationality of this or that republic. In this case, it's Ukraine, and wearing the traditional dress to show that the Soviet Union was a brotherhood of nations, that all republics were equal and their nationalities were honored and embraced within the bigger Soviet Union. And they were, in a way, until as long as they went along with this one ideological narrative that the Communist Party of the USSR promoted. If they tried to come up with their individual nationalist or national agendas, that would be quite a different story. So in a way, these women, these Ukrainian women here are token Ukrainians. And what is a tokenization? What is it when we say that this or that person is a token woman or a token Ukrainian or a token worker? Tokenization, when these kinds of things are represented in not just in paintings but everywhere, means that these images present an opportunity without the actual opportunity. So this is the very definition of what these kinds of representations did and how they worked. And here we have one of our prominent, really very important and outstanding paintings of also Nikita Khrushchev in 1961. It is called Motherland Greets a Hero. And this is a very important turning point in the international status of the Soviet Union. Nikita Khrushchev greets Yuri Gagarin, the first astronaut in outer space, 1961. And this event really shook the whole globe and started a space race. Yuri Gagarin went into outer space in his spaceship Vostok 1 on April 12, 1961. And so it was a very short space travel. he came back to Earth, and in a couple of days after he recovered and after medical tests, he was taken from the Baikonur space station, space airdrome in Kazakhstan to Moscow. And that's where these people and the Soviet government greeted him in a very festive celebration of his flight. And let's talk a little bit about the artist, because we covered a lot of paintings. We talked about the composition and the stories that these paintings are telling us, but not a lot about the artists. So Mikhail Khmelko, here we have his portrait, was born in 1919 in the family of a worker who was the supporter of the revolution and a participant of the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. And so Mikhail Khmelko was born and raised a Soviet person, a supporter of the communist cause. He went to an art college, then the war started and he participated in the Second World War. And then he graduated from the Kiev Art Institute after the war, around 1946, I believe, and became the member of the Ukrainian Artists Union, of the Artist Union of Soviet Ukrainian artists, and just began to actively paint works on various Soviet themes and became really a prominent Soviet artist. His paintings can be found in the major museums of Russia and Ukraine, such as the Tretyakov Gallery and the State Russian Museum. And he was also a master of large compositions. He was one of the few Soviet artists that got 2 Stalin Prizes. Last time, during our first virtual tour, we looked at the large painting of Stalin in the Bolshoi Theater. And if you remember it, I talked about the artist Shovkunenko, who submitted this large painting, 12 by 19 feet, to the Stalin Prize jury, but didn't get it. While Yuri Khmelko got 2 prizes. That was the highest award that would be given to Soviet artists, writers, scientists, public figures. It was not just an award to an artist. It was this all-union award to outstanding leaders in their respective arts and crafts and industries and other walks of life. And here you can see one painting that was awarded the Stalin Prize by Khmelko. Unfortunately, we don't have this painting in our museum. It is just an example of what kind of a painting would be awarded the Stalin Prize. It is a very famous painting. It's called The Triumph of the Victorious Motherland, 1949. And it shows the parade of victory after the Second World War. And here you can see Soviet soldiers, participants of the Second World War, creating a pile of German Nazi banners and symbols at the foot of the mausoleum, Lenin's tomb. And here you can see the commanders and generals of the Soviet army. And on top here, you can see the members of the Soviet government and leadership, including Stalin, Mikoyan, Molotov, Kaganovich. You can see many of those people, actually possibly the same set of people that we have in our Stalin painting here. And this is another painting that got the Stalin Prize. And you can see Stalin here as well, and the members of the Soviet government. And it is called A Toast to the Great Russian People, 1946, again in celebration of the victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. But let's look again at our paintings that we have in our exhibition, that you can see Yuri Gagarin and Nikita Khrushchev. And I found this photograph from an old newspaper that shows how this actual event looked in real life. And you see how the Mikhail Khmelko took some artistic license to rewrite and change the look of that event, create this very festive greeting of the astronaut by the masses of people, how he brings the people into the picture, while in fact, when we look at the photograph, we can see that here is Yuri Gagarin walking down this red carpet towards the leaders, and you can see Khrushchev in his hat, his recognizable hat that he took off here in our painting. And on the one side of that photograph, we can see a military band playing the songs that we are actually playing in our galleries. We are born to turn fairy tale into reality. It's a well-known Soviet song, and we've been playing it in the galleries. That's what the band is playing here. And we see a crowd of people on the other side, on the opposite side, and actually the Soviet militia in front of them, keeping the people away from the hero. So you see how different actually the photograph looks from the painting. And let's look at some close-ups of that painting. So here the artist put some important members of the Soviet government. You can see here Anastas Mikoyan, Voroshilov, and young Brezhnev, and this woman as the Minister of Culture, Katerina Furtseva. And it's one of the few, probably it's the only portrait of Leonid Brezhnev, who would become the next leader after Khrushchev, that we have in our exhibition. And also I found one very interesting thing in this portrait. So in this painting. So here is Nikita Khrushchev, but in the crowd, I detected this person who looks like Nikita Khrushchev, almost his double, but it's this person is in that crowd of people behind Khrushchev. A kind of a fascinating mystery to me. I just discovered it recently and will be trying to figure out what the Khrushchev double is doing here in this crowd. And so as you see, Mikhail Khmelko's paintings are exceptionally large. They're really enormous. You should come to the gallery, to the museum, to see the painting in person and appreciate the scale of this painting. It incorporates hundreds of people, hundreds of individual portraits. It's extremely difficult to compose these paintings, this kind of paintings, to create a structure, a composition, incorporate all of these multiple figures that are based on the linear, on the perspective. They're all different sizes, and you have to really figure out how to create this crowd of people that are situated at different distance from the viewer, so that the crowd looks real. And I just picked up this little, it's just one of the figures in the crowd, a girl, a young pioneer. But you won't be able even to pay attention to her when you look at the overall painting, but it's so masterfully executed, so beautifully painted. Mikhail Khmyelko was really a great master of the kind of art that he was doing, no matter the ideological content. As far as the craftsmanship, the masterful brushwork, he was really an expert. And another very important theme that's these all union or Republican exhibitions always had, it was a must in the 50s and 60s and 70s, was the theme of the Second World War. And this collection of Yuri Manichuk and Rose Brady, now part of our permanent collection, has a wonderful selection of paintings dedicated to the Second World War. And let's look at some of them and see what Soviet artists were trying to do in those paintings. And here I would like us to compare these two paintings. They're both on the main level. I want to show you one here to the left. It's called June of 1945 by Valentin Pashenko. And the painting on your left is by the entrance to the main gallery. It's just called Soldier from 1980. So these paintings that did not refer to specific historical events like the ones we just looked at, like the awarding of the Order of Lenin to Ukraine, a historical event. So, or the greeting of Yuri Gagarin by Nikita Khrushchev, a historical event that actually happened. And those paintings had to be really historically accurate, even though, as we saw, artists took quite a lot of artistic license to represent these scenes. These paintings showing unknown soldiers or unknown workers were different. And here artists could focus more on the expressive, emotional atmosphere of the painting. And these paintings would allow the viewer to emotionally invest in this painting more, to identify with the character, or to respond in a more spontaneous way to these paintings. And these were still paintings of the socialist realist style, but quite different from those very official, formal portraits. You can compare them to, for example, French art, the portrait of Louis XIV or Louis XVI, and or the scene that includes the king and the queen and other people, or the portrait of a bourgeois family from the same period, or even an aristocratic woman and children, would be quite different and with different, or portraits of French farmers, unknown people, would be quite different from those official portraits of royalty. So it's a little bit similar here in Soviet art. So here we can see a soldier. The painting is dated, or the event in the painting is dated as June 1945. The war was over in May. The soldier came back home, and he looks, he's painted against this golden, beautiful background of the field of grain. And he's looking at this plant in his hand almost in disbelief. How is it possible that life is going on and the earth continues to bring forth the wonderful fruit and the grains and the future harvest? So it's quite full of this beautiful feeling of the end of the war. And you see the color scheme is quite limited to a few colors, and the main dominant color is gold. So the painting is full of hope and full of also the appreciation of what this soldier has been through, and that he survived and he's back and looking at this. So it's a kind of a complex set of emotions that these paintings would incorporate. And this painting, especially dedicated to participants of the Second World War, evoked quite a different response from the viewers, who were probably themselves participants of the war, or their relatives for sure. In the 1970s, there was not a single person, not a single family in the Soviet Union that was not touched by the war. The painting on your right is quite different, a different emotion behind it, a different ambience, a different atmosphere. This soldier is also back from the war, but what he found was destroyed home, destroyed house. And the only thing that he found was the doll, this little doll that probably belonged to his daughter. And the expression on his face is quite different, and I'm sure you can read this painting well. So these paintings, actually, even for us, people coming from a different time period and a different background, would be a lot more understandable than those paintings from the Soviet revolutionary and historical themes that need the knowledge to unpack them and need the knowledge of those little references and clues that the artist would put into those paintings. So two wonderful paintings, but also I would like to talk about these paintings as objects that traveled a long way to get here to Minneapolis, to the Museum of Russian Art. Our collector, Yuri Manichuk, bought or acquired a lot of these paintings from families of the artists, or from artists themselves in the 1990s. Many of them were still around. And these paintings in the 90s were not appreciated, they were not displayed. Some of the Soviet artists who used to do this kind of art for national and Republican exhibitions kept a lot of their works in the small studios, quite often rolled and just tucked under a chair, under a bed, or into a bucket. And you can see the traces of how these paintings lived, so to say, in the 1990s, rolled into tight rolls and just put on a shelf or in a bucket or in a box in an artist studio. If you look at these images, you can see a lot of these horizontal cracks, and here on this painting as well. And these are the witnesses, these cracks are of what kind of life these paintings had in the 1990s, on the verge of extinction almost. So partly the idea behind collecting these paintings in the 1990s for Yuri Manichuk was to rescue these paintings from oblivion and possibly from destruction, because no one was interested in them at that time, and artists just didn't know what to do with them. So you can see these close-ups of these cracks. We just received this donation in December and January. Some of the paintings came to us recently, as recent as a couple months ago, or actually a month. So we are going to create a conservation plan for these paintings and prioritize what needs to be repaired first. And looking at these cracks, probably this painting of the soldier in a grain field would be on our priority list, because you can see these cracks are beginning to lift at the edges, so they will need to be stabilized soon. And now let's look at another painting also in our exhibition next to our soldier in the field by Mikhail Antonchik, this painting, also dedicated to the Second World War. And this painting is called Triumph of Women. That's what the title was on the checklist when we received this collection. But in fact, when I looked at the back of the painting, I saw that the painting had a different name in Russian or in Ukrainian. In fact, it was called Podvigi Женщины, which could be translated as exploits or heroic deeds or heroism or heroic actions of these women. So what we see here is three women, three generations of women, possibly mother, daughter, and grandmother, sowing seeds of the future harvest. Let's see what kind of visual references and clues are here to help us understand the painting. We can see these two orders on pinned to the chest of the mother. And one of them is the Order of Glory, that's the Silver Star, and the other is Medal for Victory over Nazi Germany, pinned to her trench coat. And these are national awards given for bravery in combat. So this woman actually participated at the front. She fought in the Second World War. Now she is back and working, planting the seeds of the future harvest. So the absence of the male, of men, is conspicuous, quite obvious what the artist is trying to say. So the men of this village most likely perished in that war. And all the tractors, all the machinery, even horses were given to the war effort, to the Soviet army. So these women are alone planting these seeds without any help from men who are gone, or horses or tractors or any kind of machinery. And the exploits of women, so the heroic deeds, the heroism is not just their work here, planting the seeds of the future harvest, no matter what, no matter how difficult it is. So their heroism comes in several different shapes and forms. So it's also the mother who participated in the war, the woman in the center. It's the old woman who sent her sons and her probably husband to war and lost all of her family. It's the heroism of the mother. And the girl who is sacrificing her youth to help her family. So actually the brunt of the post-war reconstruction fell on women, as a lot of men perished in the Second World War. And let's look at how this painting is painted. It's different from the rest of our paintings. It's the color palette is economical, does not include a variety of colors. There are two dominant colors, this yellow gold and dark black gray. And of the earth and of the women's clothing. These paintings can be called, this painting can be called the painting done in the severe styles. The severe style emerged in the late 1950s during the Khrushchev period of the liberalization and de-Stalinization of the country that was called the Khrushchev thaw. So the artists began to experiment more with color and with the themes of the painting, of their paintings. the severe style was called so not only because of that very economical color palette and the lines and the structure of the painting. It was also called the severe style that because these artists stopped varnishing and embellishing the Soviet reality. They showed the severe truth about Soviet life, all the hardships that the Soviet people had to go through connected to the war, also the hard work that was involved in reconstructing the country, but also in just the ordinary work of a working person is hard. And that's why the style received that title, the severe style. It was quite a new development and a very important development in Soviet art of that era, late 1950s, early 1960s. And this painting could be a good example, probably our number one example of the severe style in this exhibition. And also look at the birds here in the top left corner. These birds are most likely cranes, quite often associated with Ukraine. And they remind me, just looking at these birds, they remind me of a famous song about the war sung by Mark Birnes. It was also from the 1960s, probably even a bit later than this painting. I'm curious if these cranes were painted a little bit later by the artist, but probably not. So this song talks about soldiers who perished in the war and then became cranes. And we look at the cranes and we remember and think about the loss of life in the Second World War and about those soldiers who have become white cranes. And I would like you to listen to this song. It's really beautiful and creates the atmosphere, adds to the atmosphere of this painting and also of the exhibition.
Мне кажется порою, что солдат с кровавых не пришедшие полей не в землю нашу полегли когда, а превратились в белых журавлей. Они до сей поры с времен тех дальних летят и подают нам голоса. Не потому, как часто и печально мы замолкаем, глядя в небеса.
It's a beautiful song about the soldiers who turned into cranes. And now let's look at another painting that is also about the war. It is less clear. So here we have also some visual clues and references that will help us read this painting. And this is one of those paintings that also comes with 2 titles. So the painting is called Marriage Vows. That's how we received this painting under this title on the checklist and on the packing list when we received the collection into our museum. But on the back of this painting, you can see, those of you who can read Russian or Ukrainian, you can see that the painting, and this is the label of that painting, probably going back to the time when the painting was created. The name of this painting is Commitment or Loyalty or Constancy, Verность. It could be translated in several different ways. I chose commitment, but it's also faithfulness or loyalty, which gives the painting quite an additional set of meanings, I would say. So what we see here is a young couple, and they're getting married. They are a Ukrainian couple. There are these elements of the traditional Ukrainian wedding. You see the head headgear, head decoration on the bride's head. Also, these traditional embroidered Ukrainian ritual towels and the traditional bread and salt given by the parents of the newlyweds to them as they arrive to their house, of most likely the bridegroom. But also look at this group to the right. We see 3 soldiers and they have guns. How is it possible that these soldiers have their guns with them? Well, it means that they have to leave to war probably in like 10-15 minutes. They have to go. They have to join their unit and go to the front. And that's what is happening here. And the young bride is ready to commit to the soldier, and neither she nor the parents of the young bridegroom and her parents, they don't know if he will ever come back. The war is harsh, and a lot of people get killed at the front. But she is determined and ready to commit to the cause, commit to her marriage vows. So that's where this title, the new title of the show of the painting comes into the picture, Marriage Vows. So probably having 2 titles really helps understand this painting. But also loyalty and commitment enter this painting in a different sense, in the Soviet sense. This painting is 1975, painted to be included into one of those exhibitions. So it's socialist realist. So let's see how socialist realism or this Soviet narrative plays out here. Look at this photograph in the background. So we see a person here. Most likely these are family photographs of the parents or grandparents of the bride and bridegroom. One of them is wearing the Budyonnovka hat that we have seen in the previous paintings, that we have actually represented as an object in our exhibition. This is the Red Army hat of a participant of the Civil War. So this, the Second World War uniform was different. You can see this new kind of Soviet soldiers uniform, but that shows that one of the family members was a participant of the Civil War on the side of the Reds. So the commitment and loyalty acquires a bigger sense here in this picture. Commitment to the Soviet cause, loyalty to the Soviet regime. And This is how we look at these Soviet paintings. There is always an immediate response to the painting. We look at the colors, we look at the composition, we look at the expressions on these on the faces of the people, because these are narrative paintings. They contain stories, so we need to figure out the story. We also enjoy the art. This painting is a kind of a monumental in scale, ready to be turned into a mosaic or a mural. There is this sense of monumentalism here. But also then we begin to look at these visual prompts on how to read the painting and on what is actually going on, what the artist's program or agenda was behind creating this painting. And then our journey into, through that exhibition of Soviet art becomes also a journey of exploration and a journey of learning and acquiring the skill of reading a painting or unpacking a painting based on coming from a different culture, based on these many visual references and clues that each of these paintings contain. And I encourage you to be really very attentive to details when you look at these or any other paintings, actually. And we have now a little bit of time. I would like us to look at some other paintings that show people, the working people. And for example, this painting of 1954, an early painting for our exhibition. So we have a lot of paintings from the 70s and not a lot from the 1950s, but a good amount of these paintings from the 1950s. It's called The First Spring. And unless you look at the date, you don't even know what the first spring is. So when I first looked at the painting and then the title, I was not quite clear about what it means, the first spring of what. And then just looking at the date, I realized that the first spring refers to the first spring of the Virgin Land project. This was a very important project, a brainchild of Nikita Khrushchev of cultivating and of land cultivation in southern Siberia and Kazakhstan, to cultivate a lot of virgin lands that were never fields, were never ever used to plant harvests. And thousands and thousands of hectares of this virgin, formerly uncultivated land was turned into fields of grain in 1954 and several subsequent years. And this was promoted as a great and exciting adventure and youth project for the Soviet youth. They were encouraged to go to the virgin lands, especially the Komsomol members, live in literally tent campsites, and cultivate these lands and bring forth a lot of harvest, a lot of grain for the country. And actually the first year of that Virgin Land project was quite successful. There was an enormous harvest, and was promoted as the great success of the party leadership and their thinking about the future of the country and how the country would develop and expand into unknown areas, including the virgin land. But then subsequent years, there were some crop failures, and it was not surprising because these lands were not cultivated for a reason. They are located in arid areas in the steppes. There is the rainfall is really very low. It's just exceptional years every, I don't know, 7 years, probably every 10 years, that a good harvest would happen because summers would be wet. Otherwise, it was just a waste of work, but there are still a lot of farms, and there used to be a lot of collective farms in the Virgin Land area. So here we see the first spring of that project. These young people have arrived, and we see the arrival of women, the first group of women, young women that came to this specific spot, and you can see some tents in the background. That's where these people live. And let's look at some fragments of this painting. So this painting, as a lot of large paintings that we have in this exhibition, has the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. The compositions of these paintings are very complex, really very difficult to create and come up with for these individual artists. And these paintings just reflect and show the masterful knowledge of how to create set up a composition, the layout, and the structure of such a large painting that has dozens and dozens of human figures, and also landscape and still lives incorporated into them. So the foreground of this painting is actually beautifully painted. You need to see that painting in person. They show the like indigenous grasses, actually, the grass that has been growing in this steppe zone for not just for centuries, for millennia. And they're so beautifully painted. You could cut out a piece of this painting and put it on a wall in your home and enjoy it for the rest of your life. They're so beautifully done. And the middle ground shows out the main characters of this painting. So these former, most likely soldiers, or young people, council members, former soldiers, some of them most probably participants of the Second World War, because it's in 1954, just 9 years after the end of the war. And a lot of these people wear soldiers' uniforms. Actually, most males, I believe, wear the soldiers' uniforms and trench coats. So these soldiers are peeling potatoes. This guy in the white coat is actually is a cook responsible for cooking, and shows how clean the kitchen is, that the white color is really important and prominent here. There is a guy who is playing the accordion to greet these young women who look, hopefully there is some kind of an interaction and smiles on the faces of these young people. So quite an atmospheric painting. You can look at these faces and you can immediately you immediately know what's going on here. There's the interactions between the young people. But look at the background. So in the background, we see there is this a little bit of a tent, and more people setting up camp here. That's where these young people are going to live. And in the background to the right, this is the top right corner, you see a long line of tractors arriving to this particular tent town or campsite to join these young people. So quite a fascinating painting, but I'm afraid we are about to we are supposed to stop here, and I encourage you to ask questions. And Michelle,
I'm right
help
here.
us with this, we could take some questions.
So I've noticed a number of people, Masha, would like to go back to marriage vows. We have a few more questions on some of the symbolism in that particular one. I don't know if you want to share screen again. Yeah, I think it's helpful to look at it if you want to. There are a couple people who asked about The man and the child on the far left, they aren't wearing any shoes. They're barefoot. Can you speak to that?
Yeah.
It's notable.
Yeah, we can easily talk about this. It's a peasant family.
Mhm.
And if you look at photographs, you know, from the 20s and 30s, and especially 1940s, that's where all the resources were dedicated to the war effort. In villages, traditionally, especially children and teenagers, and also adults, they walked barefoot all the time. And this is Ukraine. It shows us that probably it's summertime or early fall or late spring, people can go barefoot. And the important participants of the wedding wear their shoes because they are dressed up. And these children are, and you know, the youth are barefoot because that's how they lived. They didn't wear shoes outside, you know, village life at that time. And some of them did, but most often, you know, they didn't.
And then I think we noted also the gentleman close to the bride who's on crutches. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he is probably, just looking at his age, he probably participated in the Civil War. And so this is, the event is set in the probably early 1940s, the beginning of the war, 1941, 42. The Civil War ended 20 years previously. So if he is like, what, between 50 and 60 here, he could be 30 during the Civil War. So he could well be a participant of the Civil War. And as we look at these photographs, most likely on the side of the Red Army.
Right. And it looks like he has one leg, perhaps. Someone just noted.
Yeah.
And then if we look to the right, the soldiers are wearing these embroidered fabrics, these towels or linens here. What might that signify, Masha?
Well, it's just a traditional ritual way of wearing these towels, ritual cloth at the traditional wedding. So no matter their commitments to the Soviet idea, they are also committed to the national traditions and national customs. So I find this, the name of the painting, the title of the painting, Commitment or Loyalty or Faithfulness, unfolds in many different ways as we look at the details of this painting. So what a commitment means, it's the young bride who is getting married, and her husband will leave probably in 15 minutes to go to the front and into the unknown. It's also the loyalty and commitment to the Soviet cause, but also it's the commitment and loyalty and faithfulness to traditional Ukrainian ways of wedding ceremony in this case.
And for all of you that are able to visit, this painting they're all magnificent, but this is a really beautiful painting to see in person as well. We're going to round up here. I think we'd like you to know that we will be doing additional virtual tours with Masha for this exhibition. This exhibition is on view through January 10th of 2021. We are also opening a new exhibition on November 9th, which is a Monday. And Masha, would you like to, before we go, just talk a little bit more about that new exhibition coming up?
This is our traditional holiday exhibition for New Year and Christmas. And this year, it's all about masks. We have a wonderful collection of New Year Soviet era masks that were worn during New Year Carnival time, or New Year celebrations from the Kim Balashak gift. And we are thankful to Kim. I hope she's watching this presentation now. And we are also grateful to Blaine Bolden, who gave some of his masks from his collection to us on a temporary loan. So we will be showing some of his wonderful Soviet era masks that he collected while he worked at the embassy, US embassy in Moscow. And yeah, so there will be masks, there will be some Soviet era ornaments, some photographs, just our usual holiday exhibition, but this time it will be called Masquerade. It will be about masks, and the masks will be shown not in a traditional museum-like way, like in cases under glass. We actually have mannequins that will be wearing costumes and those masks. So this is a show not to be missed. Also, during our next installment of my virtual tours about these exhibition leaders and the masses, we'll talk about women in Soviet art. We have quite a number of paintings of women here.
That's exciting. We'll be announcing the date for that very soon, and I will send that directly to all of you who are here today and anyone who registered, so you'll know. And it's free, so we're excited to be able to do this kind of programming. It's such a pleasure to listen to Masha speak directly about the work. And so if there are any advantages to doing a lot of virtual programming, I think this is one of them. So thank you so much, Masha, for doing this again today. You can always contact us via all of our emails are on the website. If you have further questions, we're happy to answer. And otherwise, thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again next time. We hope to see you at the gallery soon as well. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for helping make it possible and helping me. And I hope to see all of you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.